Good evening, everyone. I'm just so grateful for the joyous atmosphere at the beginning of the Human Relations Commission's regular meeting for April 8th, 2021. At this time, I'd like staff to do roll call, please.
Commissioner Duneray? Oh,
You were muted.
He's
Present.
not muted,
Oh,
but
there
we
you
can't. There
I
you
just
are.
can hear you. Commissioner Regier,
Present.
Commissioner Savage,
Present.
Chair Smith,
Present.
Vice Chair Singer.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Do we have any agenda changes, requests, and deletions?
We have one, unless Mary corrects me, we do not have the minutes. Is that correct, Mary?
Yeah, the minutes weren't ready yet.
The minutes weren't ready yet. So we will, next time you will have a whole slew of them to.
Is that the
review.
adjustment to sent minutes?
Yeah, that's the adjustment and
Okay.
the insurance that they were done correctly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. All right, we are now at time for oral communications. If the item is not on the agenda, this is the opportunity for the public to freely speak. Each person is given a total of 2 minutes to speak. Staff, I'll turn this over.
Okay, I have to unmute myself first, so just hold on 1 second, please. Okay, I see one hand. Aaron James, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
So my question for you all is, should we have an open and powerful conversation in the city of Palo Alto with the HRC regarding banning canine units in Palo Alto? Back in 2005, I made a public records request. The city happily turned over the data that there had been in the last 36 months, 13 dog bites, and they broke it down racially. This year, I sent you my Public Records Act. I want everybody to be able to see how it plays out. The city does not want to give me the race of the 5 dog bite victims. That's going backwards in terms of transparency. I also sent you in that the 25-page complaint that Mr. Aleo's attorney filed. That came as part of the Public Records Act. It shows the brutal shark-like dog bites that were inflicted on Mr. Aleo. Also look at Eisenberg's and Tannick's logs. It appears that, at least from the little I can see, that Eisenberg does a lot more work in East Palo Alto with the canines than in Palo Alto, but I don't have enough data to say that conclusively. With Tannick, the other dog handler, she spends a lot of time in, it looks like, in Mountain View and in Redwood City and Menlo Park. Couldn't see a lot of deployments in Palo Alto, and she spends a lot of time parading around these horribly vicious dogs to our youth, trying to soften them up. These canines, we know, have been used against enslaved people during Jim Crow. Also, they were used during the Civil Rights Movement and as recent as the Black Lives Matter movement. We really need to have a powerful, thoughtful, ongoing conversation about whether we want these brutal kind of activities as being part of a law enforcement in Palo Alto. And I hope that you all will, just like you're putting Israel-Palestine on the controversial issue on the calendar later today, I hope you put this on the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Our next speaker is Rebecca Eisenberg. Rebecca, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. First, I really do want to thank all of you on the Human Relations Commission. I know some of you personally, and and I communicate with you all, and I have just a great amount of respect for you and the hard work that you do. And I recognize that you're in a tough spot, given that the city of Palo Alto, both staff and city council, does not prioritize these issues. As shown very clearly as just one small example by their making your commission smaller. I mean, that just really sent a message. Anyway, so before I get into the substance, for which I probably won't have much time, I want to make 2 process requests. And I know I kind of ask this every week, and I really hope that you all can think about this, consider it hard, and maybe just experiment with it. First is when there are only 1 or 2 speakers, why not give us like 5 minutes? You're the Human Relations Commission. You all have the obligation, and I know for a fact that you care, at least the ones I know very well, and I assume that the others are, that all of you care about humans in Palo Alto. And one way to really show that is to allow the public to speak longer. Second is Zoom already has built in the ability for us to show our faces and your faces while we're talking. That is just so important for communication, so helpful for us to see you when we're talking. Not just your finger hanging over the pause button if I'm running out of time, and you to see us. That would also be a really human thing. As a substance, I'm out of time. So I just want to say I agree with everything Aram says, and I hope that you all will consider everything he said strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. There are no more hands, Chair.
Thank you both, Mr. James, Mrs. Eisenberg, for your thoughtful public comments. It enriches our dialogue. At this time, we have consideration of avenues for response in regard to addressing the needs of the unhoused in Palo Alto. At this time, I will we'll have Commissioner Regehr and Commissioner Duterral give their report, their findings, their directions of where they want to, what they found, what they've seen. I want to then do 2 minutes of round robin questioning by the commission based on, that would be just 3 of us because 2 of you are giving the report. And then I will open up for public comments. And then if we want to come back for another set of questions, we'll be happy to at that point. Commissioner Regehr, Commissioner Duterral.
Great. We've met and we've talked varieties of people. And so I'll give a historical perspective of what led me to be here and what and then Sunita will give his practical kind of applications of putting everything together. That's kind of how we geared it. I was 10 years old when we moved to the Bay Area, and I really wanted to live in Palo Alto. And we lived in Sunnyvale. And at the time, Sunnyvale was orchards. And there were quite a few people living in the orchards. And I remember then when I became a high school student, I remember wanting to know why certain people weren't getting involved in our school. And I was finally talking to someone and they said, well, I said, they said, well, I don't have access to get to school after school. And so I said, well, I'll give you a ride home. And she said, well, if you do, you have to promise me something. And I said, what? She goes, you cannot tell anybody where I live or how I live. And it broke my heart. And I did. And she started participating in the schools. Then I still couldn't, then I grew up and I still couldn't, and we moved away, and I moved to Redwood City because we couldn't afford to live in Palo Alto. And the earthquake happened in 1989 and my kids were in school. And Redwood City had no earthquake preparedness at all, the school district. So I went to Palo Alto and the school district and the city, and really they had it all together and they were the leader. And I brought it back to Redwood City and redeveloped earthquake stuff in the school district. And then finally we can afford to live in Palo Alto. And it has always been a dream. And I think that why I came on Human Relations Commission is because I started meeting certain people in our community. You know, a woman who lived in Palo Alto who raised her children, who had a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old and lost her husband. They saved enough money so the kids could go visit their grandparents. And unbeknownst to her, her husband took all the money, canceled her all accounts, and she lost her house and she became homeless in Palo Alto. And that's one story. And then I started meeting another person who grew up in Palo Alto and lived in a car because he wanted to live in Palo Alto because that's where he grew up and he couldn't afford to live here. And I started hearing all these stories and I thought, okay, I want to do something. And I still hear stories and the unhoused and people living in the cars was why I came to be on the Human Relations Commission. And I'm old. I mean, I'm old. I'm 65 years old and I don't have you know, I want us to be leaders again, and I also want us to move forward. And so it's a very complicated issue. It's a very complicated issue to please people that are living here and people that want to live here and are living here. And I started meeting students and being asked by teachers when I was working in the school district, could I work with certain students? Because they don't have access. They live in their cars, they live in their garages. And so I'm so glad that it's on here now. And it's a complicated issue. And so now I will lead Sunita to carry on what we kind of decided, more concrete plan. But that is just a general feeling of, I think it's a very important, and I know Palo Alto we can lead. We could follow and we could also lead. And I just hope that we all do this. Sunita, you're on mute.
I definitely was. Thank you. Thanks, Commissioner Regier, for that. So Patty and I met and had a lot of conversations, and we've been listening intently to this conversation that's been ongoing at city council meetings and with the presentations, where we got to meet many of the different players and track what's been going on with safe parking program and Gang Road, as well as the up and coming attempt to have multiple sites as well get permits in different houses of worship. And it's clearly a very complex problem. And I know that the piece that we were tasked to originally came up around how do we find a way to recommend policies to city council that will allow us to treat RV dwellers and vehicle dwellers in a more humane way. I think that was sort of the impetus. And so that's a piece of what we've been looking at, but it's become really clear that this is a much larger issue. And I think that a place to start, we've had various ideas around how do we more kindly maybe announce that vehicles need to be moved? What is the intention behind that? Is it to make sure the vehicles are operable? Is it to make sure the streets can be cleaned? Like, what are the intentions behind that so that we can do it in a way that makes sense and isn't startling or frightening or causing, having the opposite effect? Really being thoughtful and in a conversation again with Assistant Police Chief Andrew Binder, sort of getting a sense that they're under the impression, or the rules are that they need to be responding to these things. And so if city council guides them differently, or we change who is supposed to respond to what issues are being reported when there are issues with, or if there are issues with the vehicle dwellers, then this is something that we need to clarify and get to the bottom of. And I think that's been happening in conversations, even with city council, trying to understand what are the laws behind this, and how do we make sure that the outreach is appropriate and the right organizations are doing the outreach. So I think that as a sort of a framing of this larger issue is really thinking about what Move Mountain View, I think, has really pointed out in these conversations. The whole point of safe parking programs, or any of these sorts of supportive elements, is to help folks get from a more precarious situation, more fragile situation where they may need some support, the right resources and support to be able to move from, let's say, worst case street dwelling to vehicle dwelling, to eventually some temporary housing, eventually to more permanent housing, and sort of move in that direction. I think that one thing is clear, and I think we would all agree, the whole community would agree, that's the direction we want things going in. We want less folks having to live in the streets and more folks with permanent solutions in housing. So if we can use that as a frame for all of our decisions, right? So if we're thinking that that's the intention, then we don't want to unnecessarily stress out vehicle dwelling families or individuals who are, working hard and trying to and desiring maybe a house that's not on wheels, or maybe to be able to park in a more safe space. And that anything that we're able to do to support the movement in that direction, so folks are not as stressed and are resting and are able to make decisions and, continue to move in that direction, is going to be supportive. And so using that lens, which I think is just sort of a humane, compassionate lens, I think is really important as we think about all of these things. So there's the issue of that sort of humane sort of way of interacting with RV dwellers, we talked a lot about how do we also help neighbors and various community members understand what are the stories of the unhoused. I certainly know prior to getting at all involved and helping out with a cleanup day that I didn't know who lived in the RVs. I certainly didn't imagine families and kids and grandparents lived in RVs, or a mother who had just delivered about a month ago lived in an RV. So these were, I think that when we hear these stories, and if we could hear these stories and finding a way to do it where we're honoring privacy, respecting privacy, but also having folks get a sense of the human stories behind folks who are in these positions, I think that would be, it would be a step towards neighbors maybe having a little compassion and maybe calling it in less, or trying to be part of an organization that's more supportive of these challenges. So obviously there's other issues that have come up as well in this conversation, and Patty and I talked about these things because we felt that in addition to just sort of basic policies around that early end of this sort of flow that I'm talking about, so street, vehicle, RV towards permanent housing, all of this sort of, this whole chain, let's call it a chain, needs to be addressed, right? And so part of the problem is that unlike our neighbors in Mountain View, for example, who've been able to create some creative container homes as well as refurbishing hotels, and there's been some really exciting and I think innovative, creative and thoughtful projects that have come about with various funds that have come from different sources. We seem to be really lagging on that front. As Patty said, I think that I know that in Palo Alto, we like to believe, and I think for a lot of good reasons, that we really are often cutting edge, the leaders, the innovators. And I think that right now in this space, certainly we are not. And I imagine there's lots of reasons for that. I'm quite new to this whole space, but I think that the first thing that we might do is really take a cue from our neighbors in Mountain View. And as some folks were pointing to earlier in city council meetings, there's a home key project that we might apply for. I know that there's various citizens who've called in and said and lamented that we've really missed a lot of opportunities. And, you know, the past is in the past, but let's learn from it and let's prepare for the next opportunity. It seems that the window for application is quite short and it's coming up this summer. And there were some really creative ideas made by city council members around potential locations, sites that could be of interest in order to house some creative temporary or, you know, temporary kinds of structures, container structures. I'm not sure exactly, but there were sites that were identified. Can we look at various potential hotels that need refurbishing and get some sort of funding from Home Key, as Mountain View did, to provide? I think it was in the hundreds of well, not multiple hundreds, but in the 100 or so dwellings for folks. And so I think that, to me, that feels like in that whole chain that we're looking at, there's certainly the policies, but there's also, can we somehow gather the right folks, city council members, organizations, city staff, potentially HRC members, to identify what would be the most feasible potential projects that we would want to submit to Home Key and apply for some funding, because funding is always an issue. So this is one of the things that Commissioner Ruggiero and I were talking about as well. And one thing that came up for us, and we realized today that actually we were also welcome to join this housing element working group, but we were all a little bit, especially in March, overwhelmed with all of the other tasks that we have. We were wondering whether there was some way where we could liaise, maybe, since Commissioner Ruggiero and I are working on this housing issue, would there be a way for us to liaise with this group so that we can stay abreast of what's going on? Because it does feel like more communication and flow between the different groups would be helpful, and more voices. So that was something that was an idea that came up for us. I think that Patty and I, when we first approached this, felt that a letter didn't feel like the right thing for us to do, the gathering of evidence, you know, from all the different players, sort of getting a sense of the way forward. It feels like this is a much larger issue that needs sort of a sustained, continued approach. And so what we did come up with was a hope to sort of, in the very short term, find a way for us to maybe help produce a few options for the home key project, as well as potentially liaise with the housing element working group, and continue to engage around the ways that we could bring that lens of not making the situation more precarious, but coming to policies and working with the PAPD and City Council to find ways to, in a more friendly way, work with RV dwellers and vehicle dwellers in a way that allows them to continue moving in that direction towards more permanent housing. Patty, is there anything that I'm forgetting that you've
No, you
thought
really
of while I
nailed
was
it.
speaking?
No, I think we really nailed it. I mean, I think, thank you. Yeah, I think that's what it was, because we were just feeling that there's so many different elements, and we really wanted to have we wanted to have a study, but also to have action applied to it. And we wanted to do it in a very, working with many different organizations and the unhoused, and have a plan. I mean, I guess, and working with everyone, because it's become such a polarized issue between it's become very polarized, and it shouldn't, but I think we all have this common good, and that, I guess that's what my point is, and I think we summed it up.
Yeah, and actually, one of the things, there were multiple things that we discussed around how do we help improve the legitimate gaps in information that there are between different elements of the community. So different neighborhoods, as well as the whole safe parking program. What is it about? And the various voices. How do we sort of get more discussions? And of course, we were thinking, well, that's an important thing. There's so many important things, but none of these things can really, does it really make sense for the HR? I think for Commissioner Regier and I to sort of spearhead, because they're already happening in some ways through other organizations. And so it really felt like finding ways for maybe for us to liaise. I think that's a nice way of sort of, because this is an issue that we've been tasked with, we'd really love to get to see and sort of bring together the different partners to continue this moving in a direction, and work with council members who had some really creative ideas around what we might do for the home key project. So I hope that's relatively clear.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that we were talking about too was that we don't want to be reactionary. We want to be proactive and try to figure out a compassionate and a thorough and an action that could be for the entire community and the entire city of Palo Alto, so that it's not neighbors against neighbors and people against people and housing people against. I mean, we want it to be inclusive in regards to addressing the entire cities. I don't remember which council member said we don't really have a map of what Palo Alto looks like in regards, and it brings me up in regards to like the cell towers. There was really we took each cell tower neighborhood and had that community, but there was not any overall sense of a plan. And I think we need to have a plan, and working with people on housing and what do we do as a city, not by neighborhood by neighborhood. So I think, Coloma, you're on mute. Sorry.
See, I'm sitting back tonight. I was enjoying not talking. I was feeling. Well, first of all, I want to, as the chair of this commission, thank Commissioner Regier, thank Commissioner Terrell for doing a couple of critical things. Policy is not determined just by words that are written on paper. Policy is, at the end of the day, the idea of being humane to other people and policies that work in favor of community. So you've done a great job of painting the picture and the humanity of it. I really enjoyed the part in your report where you spoke about how people don't see the humanity of those that are living in the vehicles. A lot of people see it as a statistical issue, not a human issue. I also love the fact that you identified a chain of what the finish line is, because I think people often segment this and don't have a good descriptive ability there. And I also am really buoyed by some of the overall bringing together of community, but also talking about what does it mean to humanely treat someone in the street. So right now, I want to open this up. We're going to give each commissioner 2 minutes, 2 minutes. We're going to start with Commissioner Savage, then Vice Chair Stinger, and then myself. And we will, they will ask questions. Staff, can we time each commissioner for 2 minutes, please?
You want me to time? I think I'll do it.
Yes, I think she said yes, Mary. All right, Commissioner Savage.
Well, excellent details, both of you. You addressed the needs, you cited examples, some very poignant examples, and ideas for housing for the unhoused, hotels or temporary, other temporary situations. And yeah, I mean, your ideas to move forward, liaise with the housing element group or help produce projects, bring together different partners, all good. It's a monumental task. You can't do it alone. But I think you have the basics, the very beginnings of what can be a very long-term project, and all good, all good. Keep it up.
Commissioner Stinger.
Thank you. Thank you so much. When I heard you were going to take on housing in 40 minutes, I thought, no, I don't think so. And that was a lovely backgrounding and taking us forward. I particularly want to thank you, Patty, for sharing your stories. I did have one question. I think taking the stories of RV dwellers in general forward is really important to the community. It's a call to action and it's a call to sensitivity. And did I hear you say, Commissioner DiTerrell, that you felt this was already being done and there was no need for us?
In terms of stories?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think what I meant is that when we were thinking about like the legitimate gaps of information that there are, like, for example, like we may not know who the unhoused are, we may not know their stories, which means that we just see inconveniences, and then neighborhoods might only see their point of view. And so we were thinking, like, should we be trying to like get more of this kind of flow of information and people understanding and sort of coming to the table and understanding what is a safe parking program. So when we were thinking about doing that kind of a gathering and trying to, kind of like community conversations that we're doing in other areas like you're doing, Vice Chair Stinger, we thought to ourselves, well, in many ways this is happening in, through Move Mountain View or through the permitting process. And so we didn't want to recreate and think that like this is the key thing we need to spend our time doing, is bringing all the different players in together and finding some core values that we all agree to. That was something we discussed at one point. And we thought, it seems like that's kind of what the Housing Working Group is at least, supposed to do, is bring lots of different folks in together and have them work on things. And so that's what I meant by not recreating the wheel or trying to redo or recreate efforts to get more information and communication out there.
I see a real need for the stories. I think the planning department does a good job of describing the zoning ramifications. Move On Mountain View will do an excellent job in describing the services that they provide. But I think a really a valuable piece that you might provide is just having a generic notebook of stories that you could turn over to the presenters. So they would have an introduction to say, who are these neighbors you're going to adopt? And it doesn't have to be the exact neighbors, but just a range of stories that could be shared with the people who are beginning the permitting process. And I had can we make comment now, or would you want to restrict it to questions, Chair?
You're muted.
Okay. You're always welcome to sit in on a something like the housing element group. You may not be liaisons, but you will be observers. And I think to have access to the data that they have and the reports that they hear would be extremely valuable going forward. And one of the questions I would have for that group and for you is, are there segments of the population that are unfairly, or not unfairly, are taking a larger hit in housing because of the COVID hit on our economy? Are there groups that need some help, special help with the housing? It's always been a problem in Palo Alto, but there are some renters who might be facing situations, and that might be a smaller target within the overall target of housing, where we could find a particular place or utility for service.
Anything else, Commissioner Stinger?
I'm just looking at my notes. Thank you.
Is it 2 minutes already, Mary?
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's
We'll
fine.
come back.
Thank
We'll
you.
come back on our second round. All right.
Can we respond to that?
Yes. Yeah. Everything's a response here.
Okay, so with respect to your idea, like the notebook of stories, the importance of that, I think both Commissioner Rigger and I would 100% agree. I think that I want to be really thoughtful about how that would be done. What would be the medium? Is it even like, how do we protect people's privacy and not turn this into something that is inappropriate or not done in a sensitive way? So I 100% agree, because I can see that how my own impression and attitude and understanding of the situation changed after, I run around Stanford campus sometimes and go through the eucalyptus groves, and I see the RVs, and I just, they're, before having a sense of what was going on the inside and the people and the humans who were living there, I just was like, I didn't really have a sense, and I didn't know. And, I made my own conclusions in a sense of like, oh gosh, it's so expensive to live here. So many people are living on the streets in their RVs, but it was a very thin story that didn't have much depth to it. And I could see how, I think I told this story briefly. It was probably almost 11 o'clock. So maybe you don't even remember. It was one of our really long meetings, but just, one of the women that I met there showing me, after the cleanup had occurred, as we were carrying a table to a car, she was showing me, because I speak some Spanish, so she was like chatting with me and pointing like, look, these potatoes, these are potatoes I planted. And they were good sized potatoes, but they had been ripped out because of the cleanup, because the cleanup was very thorough with leaves and all the stuff was sort of cleaned up. And so a lot of these plants got torn up. And she showed me all the different things that she had planted sort of camouflaged behind the roses. And I think, like, to me, that's such an incredibly sweet and evocative snapshot, in a sense, of families who are living on El Camino, right? Like, it's such a busy street. I don't even really necessarily like to go for walks along El Camino. I would much rather choose to walk elsewhere. And then to see this sweet thing that, just using the earth that's there to plant something. I think that these stories are actually really evocative and softening to people to understand, like, the value that someone places in just this dirt here and being able to grow something. Most of us, if we have gardens, we understand that. If we don't, we don't. But I really think that that's incredibly important. My question is really, how do we do it in a thoughtful way that doesn't become kind of like sensational or insensitive and respecting of privacy? And I don't know the answer to that, but I hope that I will.
2 minutes.
Oh,
Oh, no, that's not why I was interrupting.
I'm sorry.
I was going to give a comment. I wasn't trying to interrupt you.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Terrell. That was my fault. I apologize. Please continue. You don't have 2
I
minutes.
can
please.
talk a lot, so I probably should respect the 2 minutes as well. Anyways, I just want to say that I think it's incredibly important, and we need to do it in a very thoughtful way for the reasons that I was trying to elaborate.
And what I wanted to add is I, for several years, have led several homeless service provider committees for the city, and being able to get stories out is something that they've always wanted to do. So I think there's a way of having you be in touch with some key providers in the community that could help you do just that, to do it in a way that's sensitive and understanding, and is not, doesn't feel exploitive of the person. Even if names are redacted, we don't want to encourage stereotypes or, I think there's a way of doing that. And in the past, they have mentioned that that is a need, and just that understanding of folks. I've often said, as I've gotten to know some of the vehicle dealers and who I've known have been in neighborhoods, it stops being the person in the red car to Susan, and Susan. And then when you know Susan's name, you feel invested in Susan. And see, I think that's actually an interesting role, looking at the things you have mentioned. That actually is one of if I look at some of the core purposes of the HRC, and you have many, but one that seemed really interesting is how do we have people come together that may have different thoughts? How do we determine a shared understanding of people's needs and people's understandings, but also to have a greater understanding of some of the needs of the neighbors as well. So I cannot, direct the HRC what to do, but I do think there is space there to make an impact if the HRC wants to consider it. And that's all I'll say.
Thank you. My 2 minutes, I want to spend some time on some of the front end stuff, particularly how do we stop the police from being the primary persons that are informing vehicles to move? Or what are the policies that we can say to the city that takes this away from the hands of PD and makes it more, in what ways can we make it more humane? Because I think that is a significant challenge. Police, for those that are marginalized, is not a sign of safety. It can be a sign of enforcement or a sign of exclusion. It's just part of society, not that it's just been that way. So I feel if we can find ways that somebody who already is feeling marginalized, is housing insecure, can deal with a social agency, an intermediary, some sort of policy to say that the front lines of this are not police officers, I would be so interested in that. Because let me tell you, I live in a house. If the police come knock on my door, it would worry me and my wife. It really would. It really would. It really would. I live in a house. I can only imagine what somebody in an RV feels like when somebody in a law enforcement uniform shows up and they are in a legally precarious position living in an RV on the street. Thank you.
Were you done?
Yeah, my 2 minutes. What's up?
Okay. Oh, that's why Mary came on the screen.
Mhm.
I just wanted to comment that one of the things that Assistant Police Chief Andrew Binder had said to me was that, there are community service officers who are dressed differently. They wear light blue shirts and that they are not armed, who are sent. And I don't know if this is a standard policy that those are the first folks to go out to the RV dwellers, but that was a point he made, that, it's an attempt to be respectful and less frightening to folks if you're going up to the RV dwellers and needing to knock on their doors or whatever. And so I just wanted to point that out as another group that I suppose, I don't know how differently they're seen from police officers, but that was something he mentioned to me. And then I think that there's been talk too about getting different organizations involved and going through them rather than direct from neighbors to police. And I think that at least one of the folks or the organizations we've been pointing at is the Carrot School Project. And, this is a very small operation, basically driven by one woman, Evelyn, who is also got a full-time job. And so we really like thinking about if we're really serious about that, how do we fund or find a way to have an organization that intervenes prior to the police?
Yes, Patty.
Well, I think Daryl has her hand
Well,
I was going to
I was
say,
going to do public, after you answer my
Okay.
questions, I
okay,
was going to do public
I
comments,
think,
and then we'll come back to down.
I think that there's two issues. I think that once regarding people being afraid of knocking on their door, I mean, or on their car, I think that is the reality, whatever happens. But I think that when something is brewing, like for example, I think that the towing that happened was a lot because of this, the cleanup and the cleaning and the garbage and stuff. And I think, and I saw it brewing, and I really wanted. That's why I kept on wanting it to be on our agenda in December, because I saw people being really upset about the clutter and the garbage and cleanup. And I think the police do have a responsibility. I mean, people do want their streets clean. They do want the garbage to be picked up. I mean, I think, and I think we need to think about a holistic, like, how do we do it so that everyone is taken care of, but also that people that are on the street or living in their car, what do they have access to? They don't have access to garbage pickup. They don't have access. Was that something that, so I think one of the city council members said, people want to be able to live in their community, and how do we live as a community together and make everybody happy, safe, and clean, and healthy. And I think that's more directly, it's more of a harder question to answer when we are dealing with a situation. Then we have to feel like we have to deal with it right then. So
That
do you know
makes
what I'm
sense.
saying?
Yes, if you're addressing a situation that is not a triage situation, but you're coming back from a more holistic, healthy perspective, it feels like, I think, is that what you're trying to say? It feels like
Right.
we're not addressing a Band-Aid, we're really trying to work the situation through. I want to open up for public comments. We will have staff, just like the commissioners, if you can give each person 2 minutes.
Okay, we have two speakers. The first one is Aram James, to be followed by Rebecca Eisenberg. Aram, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, Rev, my phone number is 415-370-5056. If you ever have the police come to your house, call me. I designed a bump before you open the door. I'm fearful of the police in this town, and I'm a white man. But we have a locked gate we're out of, and I designed a bumper sticker some years ago, which reads as follows: I do not consent to a search of my person, my vehicle, or my residence. So don't ask. This home, this person is protected by the Fourth Amendment. And I'm very serious about that. You let those folks in and bad things happen, even though you don't intend to do that. Rebecca's been a huge advocate for the Home Key Project funding. She's been down on the city council for not doing that. The housing element, I watched the selection process. It's a stacked deck of a large percentage of those folks are not for low-income housing or the unhoused. It's going to be a tough project for you all to make a difference with them. That's my personal opinion. I'm glad you have the Santa Barbara manual. I understand that that's the way to go, and I hope you share that amongst the HRC members. I did make a Public Records Act last week, and I sent it to you because the chief of police in this town made the claim that the police didn't order this. Somebody higher up in government did, in the local government. So I've asked who that person is so we can hold that person accountable. We'll see whether the city is more responsive to that public record than they have been foot dragging with my extraordinarily long one on the canine issue. I appreciated the presentation by both of the members of the council, I'm sorry, of the HRC. It's a very tough job. I started on the project of the RVs, Stanford students and others, safe parking program back in 2011. We just got the first 4 parking lots of a church formally sanctioned. I've been to a lot of those meetings with Rebecca Tanner. I know you have, Reverend, and others folks, and you know how difficult it is in the reactionary population that's out there to oppose it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. The next speaker is Rebecca Eisenberg. Rebecca, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much, HRC. First of all, I'm really grateful to this report and proposal by Sunita and Patty. Thank you so much. You totally nailed it. As Aaron said, yes, I've been passionately advocating for Palo Alto to take advantage of this soon to be released $1.5 billion of home key funds that should be released in June. And when they are released, the deadlines are coming up extremely fast, and it's going to be a first come, first serve. As Patty and Sunita noted, you all need to be prepared for that deadline. Another wrinkle I wanted to toss in here, because it might be of interest to you, is that it actually, if given that Palo Alto City Council and the staff, unfortunately, has a record of hostility towards housing the unhoused, being honest, we need to admit that, there actually does not have to be a municipality requesting these funds. It can be a nonprofit or a different organization. Also, as I said at that meeting, and some of you know already, Life Moves really wants to do a project here in Palo Alto, but if we don't jump on that, they will move on because they provide services. Speaking of Life Moves, I just wanted to say that I respect and recognize these hard conversations you're having about providing services to shelter communities, but you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Life Moves is a wraparound service provider and has expertise for many years in doing just that. I think it might save a lot of time to talk to Life Moves directly about their recommendations for wraparound services. Also, it's driving me crazy, this thing about crap. Can you give me 10 more seconds, please? About this, thank you, about garbage pickup. The city of Palo Alto should act like other cities and provide garbage bins and garbage pickup for the vehicle dwellers. It's unconscionable and actually irrational that they don't. That's why there's litter, because there are no trash bins and no recycling bins. The way to think this through, in my mind, is that right now, City of Palo Alto does garbage pickup for free for businesses who don't pay a dime in tax, including Tesla and Palantir. They do garbage pickup for nonprofits, so-called nonprofit, actually for, let's just say, Castellea, which has $140 million in revenue, much of it profit, and owns $1 billion of real estate, yet and don't pay a dime in taxes. City of Palo Alto does garbage pickup there. Anyway, City of Palo Alto should provide garbage cans and garbage pickup for vehicle dwellers too. And I recommend that we just find a way to provide it personally, directly, if the city won't do it. Thank you. Thank
you so much. I need to figure out how to get free garbage takeout for the church, because we got to pay for it. Commissioner Savage, you've been waiting patiently.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I just wanted to respond to what you had said regarding wanting to change police policy and who should deal with homeless or RV dwellers. Mm-hmm. And as Commissioner Toure brought up, the community service officers drive a different car. They are non-sworn, unarmed individuals, and they deal directly with the community and do a great job. In addition, Palo Alto Police Department is looking into having social workers in the squad cars with the officer. That makes a world of difference. The County of Santa Clara has a group looking into this as well. So, so they're all on the right track, and you know, I think that's the way to go.
I agree.
It's also based on, it's called the Cahoots model. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It started in Oregon, where police do not handle, well, it's mainly mental health issues in which some homeless are involved with that. And, it's just social workers dealing with it instead of police. And it seems to be a very successful program.
I like that a lot. Thank you. Do we have any other commissioners that have any questions for Commissioner Riquier or Commissioner Toure? All right.
Oh, can
Do
I
we-
just make,
Yes.
can I was going to say that there's certain people in the city, the staff that have been really working with, and they're trying to work with doing composting and litter, garbage pickup and recycling with the safe parking lot groups. I mean, the staff is really working, trying to figure this out.
Thank you.
So I just want to say that they are, I mean, they are working, trying to work this out.
Thank you so much. We have Commissioner Steer.
Thank you. I just had one more thought. I don't want to make the stories a bigger part of your work plan than they are, but I do think they're important. I know I took dinner to a homeless shelter and I thought we were just going to leave it. And my daughter and I were told, no, the way it works is you make the dinner and then you sit and we all eat together. And I sat down at the table and across from me was the security guard at the building I worked for, who had just lost his home. And that made it real for me that more than before that. I knew him. I shook his hand as I left the building every night. And he was this. And so I think that there's really something to do there. And I have one other anecdote that I think was a surprise to me. A friend of mine wanted to was doing a photography and art project, and she's a professional artist, she's very good. And she was just going to ride 22 up and down the peninsula and take pictures of people. And I sort of thought, well, really an interesting project, but I don't quite get it. But then she put a beautiful portrait gallery up in one of the plazas and down on Lytton Avenue with everybody having a name. And for the opening, all of the people who were on the bus were there, and they had a photograph of themselves with a name. They were identified for the, not for the first time, but they were given a personality and recognition. And so I think for both sides, this could be respectfully done. And it might even be a project that we could get some help from the youth services or another group so that there could be some learning that would make it a three-legged stool, some identity for a segment of the population, some learning for another segment of the population, and some implementation for another set. And I think it's a minor part of what you're proposing, but I just don't want you to lose it.
Thank you so much. All right.
Can I just quickly respond to that?
Oh, definitely. You can respond as long as you need.
The tricky part of all of this is what is the execution and how is it distributed? I mean, if we have all these stories, then where do they go? How do they get published? Do we have an HRC Instagram page? Like how is, it's wonderful for us to do the stories and to do it in a really thoughtful way. And the ultimate goal then is like to have as many folks be able to participate and learn, engage in these stories. And I guess I would love to throw out there if anyone has experience or ideas on how to do this to maximally reach people, what that next step would be.
I don't know if this is a working plan. Sunita, I guess it was right when I was on the commission, we were working on housing and I was proposing that we do something at the library, like an exhibit on the unhoused and housing, because I think we're right, but I also think on the same part is and then I was working with another organization about trying to figure out a way that we could have articles in the daily or the weekly. So there's many opportunities to do this, but
So
but
I
in
would
Palo
say,
Alto, but to get to the point, I think the other point about sensitivity is that Palo Alto, as Supervisor Simidian said, is people that are homeless here. In some ways, they want to fit in. They want to be invisible. They don't, they're invisible because they want, and their kids don't want to have everybody know that they're homeless and they're living in their car. I mean, I mean, I think we have to be sensitive when we're getting. I mean, I think we do. I think it's another topic of how do we do this.
So I've got a couple of thoughts for you on that. I think talking to those in the city like Megan, that's over communication. She might have some direction, thoughts, ideas, and resources on getting story out. I think you have opportunities to also, the art commission wanted us to partner with them on something. We can ask them to partner with us on something, right? So I think this storytelling thing is great. I think you'll hear from Commissioner Stinger in her next report. We're forging a lot of bonds in the community with the library, the art center, Theater Works, a couple of other places, which I feel like after our current project with them, maybe some of them would be open to a discussion around how we tell these stories. So there's a lot of space for you to work in the story space. I do want to say this, look for the right partnerships doing the storytelling instead of trying to do the heavy lifting of the storytelling yourself, because I think your time is better spent doing some of the policy stuff, but partnering with those that are storytellers.
That's exactly what, that's exactly what I was feeling. Like I would rather focus on getting home key and getting something of real policies than spending my time on storytelling.
Yes, well, and you need both. You need both.
We need both.
I think stories help make policies go down the hill quicker.
Right.
But I do, I think because most people, me and Minka were sharing the other day, a lot of organizations that deal with people that are marginalized, they get their support from people around anecdotal evidence, not the data evidence.
Right.
So thank you, Mary. You're so efficient. So this is what I would like to do. I don't think we have an action item today. What I would like to see, I will put it back on the agenda for the next time, but I would like to come up with a next step plan and where we want to focus on specifically with this. Who do we want to reach out to where, so that we can start adding flesh to this and start working this thing over. Like I said, this is a long-term game, and I know also I think we want to figure out. I want to figure out this home key timeline and where that is. I don't know what that means, but
so staff has to do a debrief from the meeting on Monday night with all the feedback from the council. So I know when we do, we can look at opportunities for how different players can be part of that. I would think that our planning staff would take the lead on the home key. But as was evidenced, at the council meeting, there was, suggestions by council members as far as locations. I think it's one of those situations where more people thinking about it is the better, but the more people trying to lead it is not the better. So right. how to have this be a value added to work forward with the whole home key concept. So that's what I wanted to have the HRC be a value added. And
okay.
Yeah.
I know that some churches, some with older congregations, were looking at doing property development where they use a parking lot. I don't know if home key is applicable. I don't know.
Those are the types of suggestions and types of things that a council member or staff may not think of. I have thought of, the property development on church properties, looking at the the one on the corner of, what is it, Charleston and Middlefield, the Japanese church that's
Korean.
part of their Korean church that sold off part of their land for housing. So that has become a trend, but those kind of ideas that may not come to forefront from others are all helpful things to have come forward.
Okay, thank you, staff. First of all, Commissioner Regehr, Commissioner Terrell, thank you for grounding our initial discussion on this in some very valuable space, humanizing it. I think we've got some very clear places we can work on from this conversation. I think what we would like to see is a priority. You gave us several different elements, maybe a priority order of those elements, and how we can work effectively as a commission, whether it is in partnership or is it on our own or in a SNAF initiative. How can we in 3 to 6 months work to move the needle, whether it's informationally, story-wise, policy-wise, partnership-wise, but continue to help move this forward. I like what Commissioner Regehr said. There are things that are always bubbling up, so we need to be ahead of the next thing that's bubbling up. And as you put this work plan together, we can go from there. All right, I'm going to close this item out. Again, thank you so much, commissioners. I really appreciate your thoroughness and really grounding us in the report. The next item on the report is, let me say something today. And I'm gonna say at every meeting, I received a list of people that are reapplying for the HRC, and there was one name missing. But the level of work that Commissioner Stinger has put into this project is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, she's putting 20 to 30 hours a week of work into this project, and it shows. When you see the cadre of partners, the activities, how the things are going, I am just honored to have the opportunity to be her partner on this project. It is an amazing way for somebody to lead. So I want to have Commissioner Stinger to please come forward and talk about our community conversations.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to walk you through a presentation which has become my companion. I go everywhere with it. It's my checklist. I tried to share it with the postman today. He was not impressed, but everybody else is. This is just how I work through my day. Let's see. So what we're working on is didn't work. Well, I'm just gonna let you work through this with me. Community conversations, 100 community conversations on race, from protest to promise, from reflection to action. And you'll remember that that was where we left the City Council in January. This is actually the deck that I used to lead off the first meeting that we had with the community advising group. And it's not a reasonable start for our discussion, but I left it there because that has turned out to be such a foundation of support. We have civic leaders, we have city government people, nonprofits, Stanford coming together, and then everybody is helping in a different way, and they are all showing so much enthusiasm. Frequently you work on projects where if you ask, you get help. I'm getting people coming up and saying, okay, this is what I'm gonna do for you. It's just, they've just been fabulous level of support and comfort. And that's when we can't even see them in this COVID environment. You will remember this quickly that we took this to City Council in June, they gave us an assignment in June. We came back with a report in January. And we had 4 themes. You'll recall this, I think, that this is persistent, consistent aggression, that positive role models are missing, and housing is a problem. we chose to reimagine community and have our 100 community leaders lead discussion groups. Sorry. Now, this is where I really want to start. And I want to start here because I want, this is not an action item, this is a discussion item. I want to communicate to you what we're doing in this project. And also I want
Vice Chair,
to have a chance to give me feedback. I'm sorry.
Chair, can you share with the folks slide 6 so they can see the
Sure.
community, so they can get an idea of who is involved with?
So we have the city manager's office, obviously human services, the art center and the library, the library from the city, Office of Community Engagement has been brilliant in getting us proper consulting, PAUSD, from the community, the League of Women Voters, Palo Alto Mediators, Dream Catchers, Youth Community Services. I need to add Youth Community Services, the Learn segment. Number of volunteers, the Junior League, Oshman Family Jewish Community Center, Theater Works are the group that are working with me.
And this is without any marketing. So as we start marketing over the next few weeks, we anticipate that more organizations will be joining the push.
Yeah, this is, I mean, that's what professionally what I did was strategic planning, and there was no strategy in this. This was just all happenstance. The vision for this conversation circles is both content and process. The content is that these conversations, the process is that we will have a conversation that is deep and allows us to become a community characterized by belonging, vested in diversity, inclusion, and equity, and committed to putting words into action. Our goals are that we have the conversation and that we identify personal behaviors and make a personal commitment to change, and that we start to chip away at structural racism. We identify root causes and specific local initiatives and policies to reshape our community and address structural racism. So what we've been involved with right now is to lay the groundwork. The preparation is to look at our communication, the PR, and the cultural experiences that are serendipitously going on in this community at the same time. The actual event will be training the hosts and having the conversations. And then subsequently we'll do an analysis and consolidation and delivery of the learnings. There'll probably be community learnings, civic learnings for this city, and educational learnings to take to PAUSD. We'll begin the outreach on Monday or next week, the 15th. There are arts, literary, historic events going on between now and June. And then we've got some elements to get together, discussion guided toolkit and trainings before we have our conversations between May 25th and Juneteenth. We will have our last advisory meeting on July 15th, when we'll have a chance to look at the first report out of learnings. And then we'll be prepared to take it to council or send a report to council when they return from holiday. So what kinds of things are we doing? We've got communication packages to send to organizations. We'll have a letter. We will make a video format of the web, a verbal ask, a written ask, letters to the editor in local press, I will ask for the community advisors to do a op-ed piece. We have high school students. Oh, I neglected to say that. I mean, it's not the staff at YCS, it is the staff, but it's also high school students who've stepped up. And we will ask them to do some editorial pieces in their journals. And they are, I'll come back to that in a second. We are, as we speak, probably 95% ready to have a website ready to launch, and that will link to the city's website. And I'll spend some time on that separately. We will have speakers. Our chair will be speaking at Kiwanis next Thursday to invite leaders or encourage people to step up. And we are co-promoting and leveraging the synergies between these fabulous events. The library is hosting Book to Action in the month of May. They've chosen How to Be an Anti-Racist as the community reads. They'll be giving free books to the community on April 21st. And then they have lectures and book clubs and children's How to Be an Anti-Racist, and a cooking demonstration. UN Film Festival is going to show a film. Just a rich exploration of how to be an anti-racist, sponsored by the library. And we have the Black Index. We heard Karen Kinsel, the director of the Art Center, talk about that to us last week. That'll be going on at the same time. And she has a rich array of lectures and events. At the same time, Theater Works has a children's play that they're going to tour this neighborhood schools with the school district, and they're going to have 4 moderated conversations. So we have all those activities going on, and the communications office has offered to, in their weekly bulletins, share this calendar. And let me come back down to here. So as an example of what I was just talking about, we have the library doing something on the 21st. We have a community organization doing something on the 25th. We have the Art Center doing artist lectures, the Friday night virtual tour. The Office of Communications will send out in their weekly blogs what's going to happen this week. How's the recruitment going? We'll have a little barometer or something to indicate how many people we've recruited. And we will have a question for the week, a theme for the week. So as people weave their anti-racist journey through the different events that are offered, we want to give them something to think about and maybe ground them and prep them for the conversations that will happen.
Can we show them a second page? There he goes.
So I'm quite excited. I think we have some good publicity and some fabulous events. I think I'm going to save we've also met with the Art Center and the Art Commissions, and I'll save that for our report outs in the next section. But I would really like to hear if there's some pieces that we could add to this or some suggestions, comments.
Well, well, first of all, Chair Stinger, Vice Chair Stinger, thank you so much for providing such a thorough and phenomenal report. Let's start with 2 minutes of questions. We can take down the presentation.
Yeah.
We'll start with the 2-minute question round, then we will go to 2-minute public comments. and then we will go from there. All right. Start with, I'm sorry, Commissioner Theriault.
Vice Chair Stinger and Chair Smith, I know that you've both been working on this very hard, and I'm incredibly impressed and tired for you for the amount of work that was put into this, and I'm very excited for the program. I feel like it's extremely thorough, and I'm learning by looking at all of the different partners and players about the city and about the different organizations. And so I don't have any questions at this time, but just thank you so much for doing this important work.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Aguirre.
Hi, this is so wonderful. Did I hear, Val, that you didn't reapply? Is that what I heard?
I'm the one.
So isn't that term over when is that term?
It's June. It's right as the project ends, actually.
Right,
Yeah,
but I'm just trying to figure out when the project is conversations and racism, and I don't think it should really end. And I guess my question to you is, do you have any hopes and dreams, like take this conversations and what's going to happen, follow up afterwards to continue this? Because I don't think it ends June. I think it should continue,
Well, we haven't really talked about it. My hope is that I could help with the key learnings. I certainly wouldn't be a voting member, but I hope that I will be part of the analysis. That's the prize. I don't want to lose the candy.
Right.
So,
that is I'm concerned about it.
I think this is a foundational conversation
Mhm.
in the sense that we're going to evolve strategies, because as much effort as we put into this, we're going to have some big wins. We're going to have some big losses. There is nothing that's 100% guaranteed. But I think what we want to be able to do is that whatever we do next is going to be based on community response. A critical feature of this, which I think we haven't mentioned, but I will mention this, is that this conversational race is going to ask people to have peer groups and not depend on one or two African-American or Asian people in a group to explain how it feels. And I think that part of it is going to be a very interesting piece. And what feedback, now how deep and honest we get from that feedback, I think that's going to be a very critical piece, because we're working with the folks at Stanford to create language and questions that will force people to be reflective on themselves and their lived community, not the community on the other side of the highway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just very curious to see how frank and honest we will be with ourselves as a community, and then how diverse and how deep do we get into the community with the 100 volunteers. Is it going to be a group that is already self-selecting, or do we manage to get some people that wouldn't generally be part of these kind of conversations? So that's my hope on it.
Because that's because when I watched all the meetings of HRC before and seeing different commissioners leave, and they had started great projects, and then they leave and the project leaves.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that the city council allows me to come back, because I reapplied.
But I guess my fuller question is, what, like, I think Commissioner, you and Commissioner Lee had the conversations about CDAG, right, or whatever it was called, the women.
Mm-hmm. The women votes, yeah. CDOT. That was before that was before I even came up. Oh, thank you, Mary.
Oh, sorry. Was that me or you?
No, that was for you.
Okay.
I was answering your question though. CDOT is at council, so there isn't anything else to do with that, for us to do with it at this point. The other thing I think that is I think a really good model is another conversation that Commissioner Stinger and Commissioner Lee led with the LGBTQ
Right.
community. And then they handed that off to a larger working group to continue the work. So they birthed it, but they were
Right.
able to create something that was consistent through the community. So hopefully, as we develop this, there might be opportunities to hand it somewhere else, leave a piece of
Okay.
it PAUSD, leave a piece of it and the at the city with the diversity equity piece. There's a lot of things that could come out of this, but we're hopeful in this conversation. At this time, if you would, we're going to open for public comment. Oh no,
No.
sorry, Commissioner Savage. I'm so sorry. Please accept my apology. I'm so sorry.
I accept them. Just a few quick comments. Commissioner Stinger, your plan ends in June, as do you. And I just hope, I look at that as just the beginning. So I hope you can continue even in an unofficial capacity. You've done so much work already. I can't imagine you gone. So anyway, yeah. It was quite a compilation of community and civic groups in that slide number 6, I guess, or 16, I don't remember, but really impressive. I'm wondering, so many activities are planned. Are any of them planning for in-person events, or these are all virtual?
They are virtual. Maybe I think they will stay virtual. There's just too much of a risk.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Well, just yeah. I mean, it's just really impressive. And congratulations, good work, and we will miss you.
I will miss you too, Daryl. Commissioner Savage.
You can call me Daryl.
The people like you, Valerie. They think you did a good job. We are now open for community input. At this time, if you would like to make any remarks on this item, please raise your hand. Staff, it's all you.
Okay, just give me a second. I see Aram James has raised his hand. Aram, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Commissioner Stinger, this is for you. It's a piece that my mother wrote. I think it's appropriate. I met James Baldwin, Jimmy, in the early summer of 1946. He and my husband, Dan, had been friends since they met as writers for the school paper at DeWitt Clinton High School in New York City. Dan and I had driven from Champaign-Urbana, where he was a student at the University of Illinois. In order to finance the trip, we took other students in our Jeep station wagon. Payments on the Jeep, $87 per month. We found Jimmy at his Coldwater flat, which he shared with numerous other young people. It was located somewhere near Greenwich Village. It was very depressing, having only one window at the front, numerous dark rooms, and one window at the rear of the building. Of the other young people, I remember one young woman worked as a waitress, and there was another prominent young man named Boyd. They were mostly white people and led unconventional lifestyles. As they were all impressed with Jimmy's genius, they decided to pool their wages and to support Jimmy so they could spend full-time writing. This meant that he could quit his job in the Bronx, clean the poop out of diapers for a diaper laundering company. There were no Pampers in those days. While I was in the flat, Jimmy would stop writing and read excerpts from his ongoing writing. I believe it was from Go Tell It on the Mountain. Friends of ours, the Goldbergs, suggested that we do a picnic on Long Island Sound. We had a great day, and Jimmy and I talked at length. We both agreed, we had both been enlisted in the Communist Party, and we both agreed that our experience was not a good one. Decisions were made from the top down and appeared to be very authoritarian. We both left very disappointed. While we were in New York, Dan and I lived in a beautiful apartment on the West End Avenue as the guests of his aunt and uncle. Dan and Jimmy were both night persons. I was unable to be so. And he hit many jazz joints and places in the village till the early morning hours. When Dan came home, he would wake me and tell me about their night adventures. I need about 10 more seconds. One night, Dan came back badly shaken. Jimmy had been roughed up by the police for nothing more than being black. Dan said Jimmy just disintegrated emotionally. I'm certain this incident and others contributed to the fire next time. One morning, Dan came home and related his surprise that Jimmy was married in the village to a young white man. It was the first that we knew that he was gay. He was very warm towards me, and I cherish these memories that I have.
Thank you.
I have to react to that. That's fabulous.
That's my mom. She wrote that in her book.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm speechless, which is it's just hard. That's a great story, and that's a great story. All
Can I?
right. Yes, interesting.
Oh, we
Interesting.
finish with public comment.
There's no hands up.
Okay, I neglected to talk about the website because that's really important. To make this easier on everybody, we have put a website together that will allow people to just sign up to be leaders on the website. But as this project evolved, the website evolved. So we have some information about the program and some places to sign up. But TheaterWorks, for example, gave us some readings. So there's a section of readings, and we have some music, and the youth community services board members have volunteered, or I asked them and they said they would make some contemporary music. I don't think I told this to you yet, Pastor Smith.
You didn't get there.
I played the stand-up piece, this beautiful music we have for my daughter, and she said, "That's brilliant. Don't you have anything more contemporary?" So we will have some young people reading for us, and we have some pieces that TheaterWorks has given us of some James Baldwin poetry readings also. So there'll be some contemporary culture to play around with.
Thank you so much. I think the realization that some people learn from conversation, some people learn from art, some people learn from dialogue, some people learn from watching. Whichever your learning style is, we have gone the extra length here to make sure that you will be able to hear and get lessons from this. So I feel really good about this. Commissioners, do we have any other questions on this item? Staff, do we have any thoughts?
No, I have heard Valerie's, the vice chair's presentation several times, and every time I continue to be more impressed and more excited about this event.
Thank you so much. Let's move on. If we can pull up the fiscal year 21-22 work plan.
Yes, Mary. I think I'm going to do that, Mary, unless you had the same document as I did, the attachment from the last meeting, or I can do it. What do you prefer, Mary? I think I
Yeah,
have.
if you could show, because I didn't, I had the other one.
Okay. If folks can let me know when they see it.
I see it. If we can go
Yes,
to,
let me try to go page. Let me just go to page 2.
that would be it.
Yeah, hold
Thank
on.
you.
Hold on. This portion. Is that what you wanted, Chair?
Yes,
I can.
that's it. That's
Okay.
it. Okay. I believe it's always good as a team to at least every meeting look at what we committed as our main areas and see where we are with them, because I think it helps us stay focused. It helps us drive issues long term. We just heard 2 just amazing reports on inclusion and belonging and housing. I think we delivered to council on hate crimes, but I think we want to come back to that. But I want to have a further conversation. The one that I would really like us to talk about is public health at this time. From several different lenses. There is going to be vaccination push. I was fortunate enough to sit on the phone with several executives from several health plans, and one person said it very, very candidly that April 15th is aspirational as far as people starting being open to everybody and then receiving vaccinations. So how do we start pulling together vaccinations in our community for those that are going to have the most significant challenges? How do we highlight places like religious institutions, nonprofits, places that are doing pop-up clinics that allow those that are seniors, those that can't drive all the way to South County, those that lack ID? How can we start really highlighting that to the community? Because I think that becomes very critical. Number two, I think we need to start talking about mental health and the long-term impacts on community. One of my leaders in my day job, he sagaciously suggested this in a phenomenal way. He says, the hardest part of a pandemic is unlearning the fear. So behaviors and community activities, and how do we, spread out and be a community? There are those that will go out and at first it'd be happy, but I've had several conversations with several individuals that are still somewhat fearful. They even if they've been vaccinated already, and they're just like, whoa, how do we get back into it? So I think as part of our commission, how do we do that? And then a third piece I would want to talk about is the mental health ramifications for seniors, working adults, and young adult teenagers over the last year, and how do we foster healthy environments for them? Because I think this is going to become a pivotal thing through the summer. Commissioner, I know Commissioner Savage and Commissioner Regier have that under their docket, but I had a transformative experience when we had almost 400 people show up to the church, and we started doing the vaccinations, and I started again hearing the stories, and again hearing the hopes and the fears, again hearing things like, I'm glad it's in North County because I work up here and I can't take 5 hours to drive down to San Jose, stand online, and come back. I work, in the days that it's open, I work, and there's a lot of, or I'm a senior and I can get an appointment because I don't have a computer. There's so many different challenges in spaces that I think the HRC can help our community work through. So I would love to see if we can start drilling in on that, maybe have it as an item on our next meeting, because I think it's so critical. Any other thoughts? I'll open it up to commissioners to speak at this time. Let's start at the top of the alphabet. Commissioner Tiriel.
Agreed. These are all really important issues, and thanks for raising them. I wonder if we also want to consider in the public health element, when you talked about fear, I think specifically pointing to, the fear of the virus, and sort of being able to move beyond that as things sort of adapt and change. I wonder if we also want to take a look at how we might also help soothe the fears that there may be in certain populations who are, where there have been hate-based incidents, where there have been various unfriendly behaviors that are happening specifically in Palo Alto, but also larger, nationally. So I wonder if that's something to look at too, in terms of the mental health, and specifically trying to, I was going to say target communities. That's not really how I want to say it, but again, I would love to see more proactive sort of, not just removal of hate-based stuff, but also how do we be more proactive in showing that there's a welcomeness for everybody, and spreading the love. I think that, love applied to fear, that's what we need. That's how fear melts.
Thank you. That's phenomenal. I really, really like that. Commissioner McGarrett.
Are we addressing just the public health thing or the entire work plan?
We can. I brought up the public health, but you can bring up any part of the work plan you'd like.
Oh, I was thinking about the mental health and the health, but Commissioner Savage and I haven't talked about that. It hasn't been part of our discussion. And but I do know that May is Mental Health Month,
Mhm.
and
I
I've been and I don't know, you know, that's kind of, but maybe we could work something around that. And
I mean, and one of the things I say is everything from NAMI to other organizations that are focused on mental health in the community. I mean, looking for the right community partnerships, maybe even reaching out to with staff, reaching out to city manager's office and saying, can some of our communications in May that are going out to the community really focus on mental health, since this is Mental Health Month? You know, I think there is some things that we can do
Mhm.
tactically to really address that. Minka? Oh, you took I thought you were you just unmuted yourself. No, okay.
It was an accident.
No, sorry. All right. Anything else, Commissioner McGinn?
no, because I mean, I have lots on mental health and public health. And I think the other thing that COVID taught us all is how it made certain people precarious in their situation of getting information out. I mean, it was very difficult for hand sanitizer once we closed the parks, once we closed, you know, and looking forward around public health and mental health is, if we have the fires and the smokes this time,
Wow.
you know, and that's looking ahead,
Mhm.
you know, how do we support the staff and how do we support the community?
Mhm. That is a great point. And that's a great point.
So that's it.
Commissioner Savage.
Yeah, well, when your church opened up to give vaccinations, you know, I live at least 3 or 4 blocks from there. The line was past my house.
Wow.
And I came out and I talked to some of these people. Some were elderly, many were elderly.
Mhm.
And, you know, and they mentioned what you had said, you know, they're not online, they don't have computers, they can't do it online. And had you not done this,
Mhm.
they don't know what they would have done. And I imagine there's a lot more than just those I spoke to about this. So, so that's a real problem, and that needs to be addressed. Uh, Other than that, Commissioner Regier and I do need to get together and talk. But yeah, there's so many different elements to this, all of them necessary and all of them timely. So we'll get to work.
Thank you much. Commissioner Stinger.
I'm at a loss. I think everything that we've talked about is so important. One item that I think is important, is more factual, is the anti-vaxxers and what that means to public health, and if there's an educational campaign we can do, the impact of that group of people on school children, on young people, on seniors. I don't know if there's anything we can do with the concern that anti-vaxxers have raised for public health.
Wow. That is, I think that is a significant public health challenge as we currently, in the world we currently live in, because herd immunity requires more of the herd, right?
Mhm.
You know, one of the things that helped us get the word out was the Office of Human Services, Minka's office, reached out to some of the senior programs and other places, and I'd love for them to talk about some of the questions and things that they received as we were dealing with the vaccinations and dealing with the opening up, because I think they hear a little more than sometimes we do. Minka, do you have any thoughts to share?
No, I think just getting it to the right people, the information. I know I do get information about vaccines and I look at the target population and I just try to blitz the individuals and organizations that work with that. Last week, there was one for Silicon Valley Independent Living Center, which works with those with disabilities on, a whole wide spectrum, and just sending that out. But I really see that as my role as much as I can for the information that does come in, to get the information out. I know today Palo Alto Community Fund made a $50,000 donation to Ravenswood Family Health Center in East Palo Alto to support vaccines as well. So there is work out there. Like I said, whenever I get something, I send it out and have a good distribution list. If the HRC is wanting to get every email that I get about vaccines to help send it out in your networks as well, please let me know. I think the faith community is always a really important one, but service clubs, sending it out to your neighborhood associations and so forth. So if you're willing to do so, then I am happy to help get the word out for those that I hear about, and the partnerships that are formed.
I need to go to public comment. Do we have any hands raised for public comment?
If we could stop, I'm going to stop sharing because we can't do two screens at once. So I'm going to stop sharing. So hold on a second, and then Mary can get the timer up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. So we have one person that has raised their hands so far. So that's Aram James. Go ahead, Aram.
Reverend Smith, I had asked for the information on the vaccine clinic that you were going to have, and it didn't come to me. But interestingly enough, it arrived in members of my wife's family in Texas and all over the country. And that's right. And so it came back to us, even though
so our vaccine clinic they got it in Texas.
The information got in Texas. They sent it back to Black brothers and sisters around here. And my Uncle Scotty, he's not my blood Uncle Scotty, but I call him Uncle Scotty. He's actually my wife's Uncle Scotty, who's very, very skeptical of white medical practitioners and probably wasn't going to get the vaccine. But when he found out that a Black church was providing it, he came and got vaccinated. He's a longtime member of Mount Zion Baptist Church, Pastor Campbell in Redwood City, and I don't think they provided that. So kudos to you. I don't know what percentage of the folks that were coming through had similar experiences, but it was awesome that you all did that. As far as the mental health component goes, I hope that we can have a public discussion about depression and other things that people are rarely willing to discuss in a public setting, because I think it's been exacerbated during COVID. I had the good experience of spending 2 years, one as a legal aid and then one as a lawyer. The public defender's office also represents people locked up in psychiatric facilities. So spending time there and just seeing how broad and it's everybody, and to be able to have an open discussion with the HRC on depression and those kind of things, I think would be extraordinarily helpful. We've all had it. I had a brother who passed away from a suicide 20, 30, 50 years ago. And the impact that it had here for me, is lifelong. But we're often afraid to talk about those things, so we need a place to do that. So I thank you guys for anything that we can do in that regard to take the shame away from mental illness. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Mr. James, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your brother, and thank you for your willingness to share that experience. It's really it takes courage. So thank you.
The next speaker is Rebecca Eisenberg. Rebecca, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I'm going to be really brief. First, with gratitude to Aram for sharing that very personal story. And as always, I agree with everything that Aram said. And I do really think that the fact that in this culture, in the dominant culture, in much of it, the fact that mental illness is so stigmatized does lead to a lot of problems. And I think it's really upon the leaders of the city to be role models. I remember when I was running for office last fall, there was a question that a kids panel asked about what do you do to relieve your anxiety? And there are 10 of us running, and 9 of the candidates said, I watch TV, I go on a hike. And I said, I speak to my mental health professional in order to model that for the kids. And because it's true. So I just think we all can take more of an active role in role modeling, admitting it, like Aaron just did. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate your work on these important causes. But mainly I wanted to talk because I wanted to read the consideration of recommendation to the city council regarding mayoral support. But apparently the city seemed to reorganize the website for reasons only they could know or that possibly don't exist today. And so that link is broken. I don't know if you're able to otherwise show this to the community, because I'm actually extremely, extremely curious about this, especially as a Jewish person, what that says. So that's all. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you so
you.
much. All right. Do we have any other thoughts on this item? Yes, Commissioner Ricker.
I just had a question for Minka. I was wondering, at the beginning of the COVID, when I talked to Meals on Wheels, they had about 60 people that were receiving Meals on Wheels in Palo Alto. And I'm wondering about those particular people that people are going to their homes, and how do people who are housebound get vaccinated? And is that a way that we could let them know too? Is just putting a flyer into Meals on Wheels?
I can check with Meals on
Good
Wheels
question.
if they're already doing so. There have been efforts by the county to work with people that are housebound, but because of their ability to go out is more limited. They are really looking people that do not have the capacity to leave their homes. So I will look to see what Meals on Wheels is doing, and I can get back to you on that.
Great, thank you.
All right. I want to move on to the next item. Just for public disclosure, Minka, is there any way for us to bring up the link that's on our minutes? Doesn't work. So is there any way to bring it up on the screen?
I can, but I'm wondering if Commissioner Regier wants to do her introduction, but I do have what was linked there. It is unfortunate that it's not working today. It's been up for a couple days, but
Wait, can we do one thing? Can we take a 5-minute quick break and come back at 7:55 and then knock this item out, and we'll be done by 8:15, 8:30? Does that sound like a plan to everybody? Okay, thank you. Let's just take a 5-minute break, please.
if I can just remind people to turn off their cameras and to mute themselves, please.
All right. I think we're going to break the record tonight and get out of here before midnight. Right. Once we have quorum, which will be one more person. There we go.
Did you eat it?
No, that's yours. Hi, Mo.
We're all here.
Right. We are all here. All right. Commissioner Regier. Okay, we are doing the. I'm just going to read it and then you can go.
Okay.
Consideration of a recommendation to the City Council regarding mayoral support of the Mayors United Against Anti-Semitism. Commissioner Regier, the stage is yours.
So I just want to ask Mika if the link is up or anything, or can.
It is not up. I did just, we can screen share it, or I did send the link to 2 of the participants who I have emails from, so who had a question about it, so we can screen share. But if you would please let me know what link you wanted me to share. There's the general information or there's the statement.
I think the statement would be.
Okay, then hold on a minute, please.
But you know me, I could just up a little bit. So
yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, so I guess the background of all of this is that many over hundreds of cities have signed throughout the country, and quite a few in the Bay Area, and this is in response to a community member who addressed this. And also, I just want to say today is Remember Holocaust Day. So I think in regards to our motion about hate, I think this is a tremendous impact on the entire community and what we value. So we've put this on as a recommendation, asking the mayor to sign the letter. And I think one of the things, because of what staff member Mika had said, is that we could address this directly to the mayor and it doesn't have to go to city council. So that's been a quicker and a more thorough kind of, in some ways, thing. This report is launched by the American Jewish Community, which is AJC, and the U.S. Conference of Mayors to Combat Anti-Semitism. The goal is that mayors review it and support it, and again, anti-Semitism. And maybe you could just put down, Mika, the statement. Can you see that yet?
No, just a minute, please.
Okay.
Okay, hold on a second. It never goes as fast as you'd like it to go, so hold on.
And I don't know how to say this. Mo Budak is on the screen too. And can he answer questions too if anybody?
He can make a presentation right now.
Mm-hmm. Can he do it now while we're waiting? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Mo.
Are you ready, Mo? Dr. Budak?
You have to unmute. You have to unmute yourself.
You're on mute.
Okay, so if everyone can hear me, thank you very much. I actually have a copy of the statement so I can just read it, make it easier for everybody. And I'm prepared to do so. So thank you for allowing me to have some time to speak about this important issue to Jews and non-Jews in Palo Alto and throughout the world. As has already been mentioned today, we are observing Yom HaShoah, a day of remembrance, where Jews around the world take the time to remember the many, memorialize the dead, and remain steadfast that this story will never be forgotten or repeated. And it really is all about anti-Semitism. 5 years ago, the U.S. mayors from all 50 states issued a call to action to combat anti-Semitism. Just a brief word about that. According to the FBI 2019 hate crimes statistics, American Jews, who make up less than 2% of the population, were victims of 60.2% of anti-religious hate crimes. That's a very narrow statistic, but per capita, Jews suffer the greatest amount from hate crimes. Not that there's a contest, but just to give a proper perspective on why this resolution is so important. And so the statement goes something like this. Enough. We, the undersigned mayors, express our deep conviction that anti-Semitism is not only an attack on Jews, but an assault on the core values of any democratic and pluralistic society. In a world of global communications, where anti-Semitic ideas spread rapidly, a concerted and principled response is required to raise awareness, to educate, and to ensure decency prevails. As mayors and municipal leaders, we have a unique responsibility to speak out against the growing menace of anti-Semitism by affirming the following. We, the undersigned, condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms, including hatred and prejudice directed toward Jews, stereotypes or conspiracy theories about Jews, Holocaust denial or distortion, and denying the Jewish people's right to self-determination and or the Jewish state's right to exist. And it finishes off with sort of a general statement. That's actually what we are asking the mayor to sign off on. We therefore commit to working within and across our communities to advance the values of respectful coexistence. We call upon mayors, municipal leaders, and other elected officials in the United States and around the world, and all people of good faith, to join us in declaring unequivocally that anti-Semitism is incompatible with fundamental democratic values. This is an initiative of the American Jewish Committee and the U.S. Conference on Mayors. This initiative was sent out to all the mayors of any city of any particularly large size. So every mayor has received it, every administrator has received it. There is certain knowledge of this initiative going around among all the city mayors. To date, 525 mayors have signed off on this. So the growth is happening rapidly, and that is a good thing. In Santa Clara County, we're on a not keeping up, so to speak. Of the 13 major cities in Santa Clara County, those that have signed off would be Milpitas, Campbell, Los Gatos, San Jose, Santa Clara, and Sunnyvale. Those that have not signed off would be Saratoga, Los Altos, Mountain View, Cupertino, Gilroy, Morgan Hill, and of course, the reason I'm here tonight, Palo Alto. Additionally, there are many communities around us, communities about the same size as us, where we are all citizens of the Bay Area, if not Santa Clara County, but similar enough in scope. And those cities would be Fremont, Hayward, Menlo Park, Newark, Redwood City, Union City, San Francisco, Los Banos, Pleasanton, and even Berkeley. So I think that this is a pretty easy ask, and I don't understand. Last year I tried really hard to get the former mayor to sign off on it, couldn't reach him. Thank you through Patty that we can maybe use this avenue to go directly to our mayor's office. I would appreciate being able to do that directly rather than going through the city council. It just adds another layer. Although there is no time limitation on this 2021 piece. However, we're a third of the way into, or a quarter of the way into 2021. It seems to me the sooner the mayor can sign off on it, the better. And it's a very important deal to the Jews of the community, as well as to many others like-minded people who are not Jewish. And the time is now to do that. Like I said, it's a very easy ask.
Thank you, Dr. Bodak. Did I get that right?
Budak. You're close
Dr.
enough.
Budak.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us. At this time, do we have you know what? Let us start from the back of the alphabet this time. Commissioner Stinger, do you have any questions? Questions or statements? You're muted.
Wrong one. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I was trying to get onto the website today, and so I got blocked. Could you please read the last sentence of the first paragraph again? It was a sentence with the word government in it. It might have been the second paragraph.
I'm not sure which one what you're referring to.
It was about the right to self-government, I think.
It's okay. So we're talking about to condemn Semitism in all forms, including denying the Jewish people's right to self-determination and or the Jewish state's right to exist. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, I guess that's it. I haven't been able to do enough research, so I'm going to have to ask the question. Does the American Jewish Congress have a stand on Palestine?
Yeah, you're going to have to look that up.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Can I address that a little bit? I was concerned about that too, Valerie, Commissioner Singer, and I really looked at it at the because that concerned me. And they do have a whole subject on there about Palestine, like their position. You can look to verify was that each country should have their own state.
Okay, thank you. I certainly want to. I guess I'll take my vote. Thank you. I really appreciate you bringing that to us. Thank you. No further questions.
Commissioner Savage?
Oh, yeah. As you said, Dr. Budak, this is an easy ask. It's also an important ask, especially since today is Yom HaShoah, and it's a symbolic day for this symbolic statement. So I hope we can move forward on this.
Commissioner Regehr introduced it. Commissioner Thiriar.
I was wondering if you had a sense, what is holding back, the list of the cities in Santa Clara County who have not signed this year and I think may not have signed last year. Do you have feedback from folks as to what it is about the statement that leads them to not sign it, or are they not getting access to this? Are they not receiving the statement for signing? Do you have a sense of that?
Is that question directed toward me?
Yeah, I guess it's directed to you and whoever else might answer.
Yeah, so I did speak with my contact at AJC, and he tells me in no uncertain terms that all mayors have had this come across their desk. So it's not a matter of access. It's a matter of, I guess politics. I don't know. It still seems to me to be an easy ask. I mean, the whole Palestinian thing does throw it in there. However, this has nothing to do with Palestine. Insofar as why they're not doing it, nobody knows. Nobody knows. I did have an occasion to speak with Jeff Rosen, our district attorney. He's very strong in this arena, especially with human rights in Santa Clara County. And he said he would try to do some reach out to speak with some of the mayors. I think he was going to talk to the mayor of Mountain View, who has not signed off on it. Neither did whoever was a mayor last year when I tried to reach out to them as well. So, something may be sticky about it. Maybe people are misinterpreting the whole Palestinian thing, but one has nothing to do with the other. It's about human rights. It's about Jews being able to survive and having their own right of self-determination. Like I said, even the mayor of Berkeley, which is a hotbed, a hot place for Palestinian thought, that mayor signed off on it.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioner?
I just had some anecdotal stories. I mean, we lived in Redwood City right by a temple, and it was spray painted with swastikas and everything. And when we came here, it was right during Passover. And my son goes, "Oh my gosh, there's so many Jews here at lunchtime." And I go, "How do you know?" And he goes, "Because they're all eating matzah." And the point was, in Redwood City, he was transferred from one school to the next, within a week during Passover. And he felt very happy that we could be open about it here instead of in Redwood City. And I think that anti-Semitism is even more little underlining, because people don't know when they're being anti-Semitic when they're talking to a Jew, because they think, "Oh, you're like me." It's like the color of skin doesn't pop out. You could be any race. And I think the question isn't why didn't they, but why. I think if the mayor of Palo Alto doesn't sign it, then that's the question to come back at. Because I think it could be just, we don't know. I mean, I don't, but the point is, why do the other ones sign it? Is, to me, an important. Redwood City, Palo Alto, Berkeley. I mean, and I think it's just, I don't know, but I don't know where to go with this, but.
Well, I have a comment about that. When the mayor doesn't sign it, it just makes for bad optics, I think, for our city. And by the way, you should know that Santa Clara County has a Jewish percentage of 4%, which is twice that of the rest of the country. And Palo Alto has a very, very high percentage. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's much higher than 4%. And so Palo Alto has per capita a lot of Jewish presence.
So couple of thoughts and questions on this statement. I have had the opportunity to be in Israel twice in the last 4 years, and spoken both to Jews, those on the Jewish side, Palestinian side, and I land on it. Every person, both of them want self-determination. So somebody declaring they want self-determination does not negate somebody else's self-determination. You didn't say, the language wasn't like, or self-determination negates somebody else's self-determination. So I don't find the language around Palestine being challenging in that manner. The other thing is, when the shooting happened in Pittsburgh, I attended, I'm good friends with the folks at Colomet. We actually traveled to Israel with them as a congregation. And I remember attending their Saturday morning service and sitting with them with tears in my eyes, because I remember what it was like when somebody shot up in Mother Emanuel, and Rabbi Booth and those folks came out and supported us. The reality is, as a principled person in America today, I can't stand for hate, not to have hate against Black people and Asian people, and then walk away from another group and say, I'm not sure, after they've had synagogues shot up twice in the last 5 years. So I'll open up for public comment. Staff?
Hold on, please, while I get the screen up. We have 2 public comments, Aram James and Rebecca Eisenberg. Aram, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, so, I have a beautiful framed picture of my dad in the synagogue in Minneapolis in 1939. And he used to be chased home, being called a Christ killer. He changed his name from Daniel Ben Ezra Fink to Stephen James. My grandfather was Louis Bayer Finkelstein. He graduated of Cornell in 1913. My probably hero as a justice, one of them is Justice Louis Brandeis, who said the following. He said, if somebody makes a statement that you consider hate speech or bad speech, and this is not verbatim, the answer to it is not censorship, but better speech. And when I listened to maybe an hour of the mayor's summit against anti-Semitism in March, well, I listened to it, it was done in March in Frankfurt. They consider, if I was to criticize the United States as a terrorist state like Martin Luther King did, and I did the same with the state of Israel, even though I'm a Jew, I would be called anti-Semitic. And so this is a concern that I have. And also, if I say I think the boycott and divest and sanction movement is a powerful and a good one, and that the Palestinians are being treated like African Americans were treated in the history of this country, I'm going to be called anti-Semitic. But that's free speech in America. There's a different perspective. When you speak against the Holocaust or a Holocaust denier in Europe, it's a crime. Here, it's part of free speech. I love my Jewish background. My dad was very idiosyncratic. He claimed as a joke that he was the president of Jews for anti-Semitism. He was bar mitzvah on the express condition that he'd never have to step into the synagogue. He wasn't a trifling man. He set up the mass exchange with the Soviets to prevent nuclear war in the 60s, and most of the people that went were New York Jews. I was lucky enough to go as a gun student. So he was not a trifling man. But this is a controversial issue, and I don't want the First Amendment chilled because somebody wants to claim I'm anti-Semitic when I'm speaking out against what the Jewish states does with the Palestinian people. Thank you for letting me speak.
Next speaker is Rebecca Eisenberg. Rebecca, go ahead, please. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm going to try not to go over, but this is an area that I've been spending a great amount of time on over the past 11 years. When my grandmother passed away, I've been writing a historical account of the experience of the Jews in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, over the turn of last century. In brief, I'm from a very poor immigrant family that was kicked out of Europe with nothing whatsoever, who managed around year 1900, like most of the Jews who came over from Europe at that time, managed to settle in an extremely unpleasant place, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because that was the only place they could find. And due to restrictive covenants on deeds, not that they had any money whatsoever, the only place they actually could live, were allowed to live legally, was Bronzeville, which was the African-American neighborhood in Milwaukee. Thanks to the generosity of the Black community in Milwaukee, my grandparents were able to grow up, and my grandmother had no education past 8th grade because she had to get a job in the factory starting at 13 years old, for which she was lucky. And she obtained it in 1923 only by lying that she wasn't Jewish. That is the brief history of the Jews and the Blacks in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a topic I'd love to discuss more, and a place where anti-Semitism was so bad that, the police killed Jews like the police kill Blacks. And that's one reason why I feel a personal connection to work against police brutality. Jews were able to climb the caste because Jews were able to, of course, appear to be white, and now have the benefits of white privilege that have been withheld from Black. But at that time, they were both treated like nothing, like not human beings. Briefly, and so that's with that background. I also want to briefly mention, I think a lot of people aren't on board with this because they don't understand the reason for a Jewish state. And I'm going to be super fast, I swear. Jews were kicked out of every single country in Europe without fail. Every country expelled Jews. The Inquisition in Spain, the pogroms in Eastern Europe, over and over, my husband wants to jump in, over and over, Jews were not allowed to participate in society. We're not allowed to go to schools. We're not allowed to participate in the economy. Right now, when I checked and that was, of course, even before the Holocaust. When I had my 23andMe checked, I learned I was 100% Ashkenazi Jew. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about why Jews are so inbred. Some think that Jews have historically excluded others. No, that might be true now. But what was true for the vast majority of Jews is that they were only allowed to be with each other. They were kept out of society. Jewish schools were not something that they did by choice. It was something they were forced to do. In the context of having been kicked out of every single country, in the context of the United States not getting involved in World War II to bomb the railroad tracks, was the thing I heard my parents say over and over again. You know, one of the mantras I heard growing up, why didn't they bomb the railroad tracks? Why didn't they bomb the railroad tracks? It could have saved millions and millions of lives, but the United States didn't. Having been betrayed, excluded, evicted from every country on earth, Jews need a Jewish state. There could be a whole nother discussion about whether that should be down there near Jerusalem, or my preference near Germany. But, you know, that's a totally different preference. But Jews need a Jewish state because there is not a country on earth that Jews have entered where they haven't been expelled. And maybe with that kind of understanding, I think people might be more sympathetic to the notion of a Jewish state, no matter where it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you have the opportunity, if you ever have the opportunity to go to Jerusalem, there's a museum called Yad Vashem, and it commemorates the Holocaust. It's a horrible experience going through it. But at the end of Yad Vashem, is as you open the doors, it looks out at this beautiful place and this beautiful rolling hills. And I asked the 2 times I've asked the question, why would they build a museum here? Why would it end like that? And they're like, this is hope. This is hope for a future. So as we take this item up, I look at it as a hopeful item for the future. That, again, if we are going to write hate letters against hate crimes, and we're going to go into BLM, I believe as a commission, we have to have the same principle across different groups. Commissioners, you have, any commissioner wants to raise their hand for any other comments, and then we'll take this to a vote. Yes, Commissioner Singer.
Thank you. I feel like I just need to make a closing statement. I certainly, by itself, would support a statement that we're asking the mayor to make for us, for the city. And in the 2 examples that you gave so eloquently, both of those congregations, I think, expressed no hatred and wanted to reach out to the victim, to the perpetrator. My question was really just to make sure that there was no balancing hatred, because I didn't hear the sentence as it was read. But I'm very supportive of the request.
Thank you so much. Any other statements from any commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Terrio.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all of the comments. I think it's clear that when we're against hate, we're against all forms of hate and all forms of discrimination and bigotry, whether it's a color of skin or religion or whatever beliefs. And it seems to me that the sticking point here is around the idea of a Jewish state. I have no problem with a Jewish state existing. I don't think that's and the right to determination. I think that I imagine, and this is what I was trying to understand around why certain mayors haven't signed, whether there's also, value given to, we refer to Palestine, but I don't think, and I'm not 100% on top of this right now in this moment, but I don't think that Palestine is yet recognized as a state. I believe it's still the West Bank and occupied territories. And so I imagine that some of the reluctance is maybe around that particular issue, and a concern that, not that there shouldn't be a Jewish state, but what does it look like for Palestinians who are living in that same area? So I guess I raise that as I absolutely support this, sending this on to the mayor for signing around everything that's said in that letter, and being against hate and condemning it and calling it out, and putting better speech out there. And I guess I am unclear, because I have not researched this particular mayoral letter. I'm unclear why the resistance is there, and I'm supposing that that's what it is. So I guess I just wanted to say that, as this is a new issue to me tonight.
Commissioner again. Well, let's see. We'll have these two commissioners, then we'll have Mo answer
Okay.
questions as best he can.
I too, when Dr. Budek told me about this, I looked at it and I was trying to present it and I looked because it is a tricky, I mean, if you take it just as anti-Semitism, it's a great letter. You know, I mean, it's against hate. And as a Human Relations Commission, you know, we are looking at the whole too, about hate is hate. And so when I looked at all the, before I presented it, I looked to see what their position, this organization's position was on Palestine and on other issues. And I was trying, and then I contacted our staff member, Binka, and because I was saying, what do I present? You know, I mean, what do we, and she had done research too, a little bit. I mean, we can't, by signing this letter, we're not saying that we have control, the mayors have control over what's going to happen in Israel. All it's saying is anti-Semitism. And as a Human Relations Commission, we are saying that it's a hate crime, you know, it's hatred towards a group of people. Yep. We're not saying I mean, I don't know how to be clear, but
I'll pick it up. So, you know, one of the interesting things is, first of all, I think there is a layer of semantics here. One of the things is declaring my self-determination does not lessen other self-determination. In the two parts, it says, and the denying the Jewish people's right to self-determination or the Jewish state's right to exist. And, you know, it is, Sunita, I will tell you this, I in my visiting the Middle East and visiting Israel, it just depends on who you talk to where. Some people don't recognize Israel, that it exists, and some people don't recognize Palestine, that it exists. Now, what they are saying here, and this is why I like the language, they've been very careful with their language. They said, don't take away my right to determine I live in a state. The other line is that they said is, if you don't agree with the policies or the actions of that state, you can't then now go shoot up a synagogue or spray paint a wall or do something anti-Semitic because you don't agree with that state's policy, which I believe is a fair ask. Now, if they had put something that they said that the Israeli state is, that there can't be a Palestine state because there's an Israeli state, I wouldn't be able to sign the statement. If they had said, used language like, because these people don't agree with the Israeli state, they don't have a right for self-determination, I personally couldn't sign the statement. But I believe somebody just stating that they have the right for self-determination and that they shouldn't be attacked because of that right in manners that are considered anti-Semitic. Well, let's be clear on what anti-Semitic is. It's hate. It's a hate-based incident or hate-based crime, right? It has to be something that's demeaning, or it has to be something that is based on an illegal action. So, so assault, vandalism, graffiti, destruction, those are anti-Semitic crimes. So I think this letter, as I see it, not the commission, as I see it, pass the sniff test as just standing for, please don't tread on me. So that's what, yes, Patty.
Also, I thought, okay, these are great words. So I went, and I think it was part of the link that was sent out to all of us and on the website about the organization, because I thought, people could say good things, but they could have on the background, and the Global Jewish Advocacy Group, which is supporting this, has on their website about about Palestine. I mean, they have very clear, and to me, that was an issue too. Like I thought, but I don't want to be leaving out this one group. Like this United Against Anti-Semitism could be great. I stand for it, but look what they're really saying, about Palestine that's not in this letter. And so I was comfortable looking at, which was sent to all of us, their position on Palestine and the Palestinians. And I know it's not in this letter, but I did want to present a letter that sounded good, but in the background, the organization was not attuned to what I wanted to present or what I believed in or what I thought the Human Relations Commission. So does that help a little bit, kind of understanding that?
I think what I would like to do now, because I think we can go in a circle.
Well, I'm blowing my hand, but.
And I'd like to take motion on this at this time. Is there anybody who would like to make a motion?
Yeah, I move that we accept the statement and forward it to the mayor or the council, whatever's appropriate.
I think the mayor is the process because it's a mayor's letter, it's not a council letter. Can I get a second?
A second.
Thank you. We will do Commissioner. We'll start with Commissioner Teria.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Regier.
Aye.
Commissioner Savage.
Aye.
Commissioner Stinger.
Aye.
Chair Smith. Aye. Dr. Boudet, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate all advocates of justice and fairness, and thank you for your tireless work. I know, I just try to get an appointment with one mayor, and it can be frustrating. So you trying to chase them all down is good. Thank you for your time tonight. All right. HRC, do we have any commissioner reports?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Can we, so now that we did this, are we going to send a letter to the mayor on our saying that we did this and that?
Yeah, we'll just basically send them the motion that the HRC has endorsed this letter to be signed and we're asking the mayor to sign it. I think it's a pretty straightforward motion.
Are you doing that as chair, or are you asking me to do that as staff chair?
Right.
I'll write it and then you can send it.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, and then are we going to ask for some timeline?
That I can only ask him to sign. I'm not his boss. I can't.
No, I'm just curious if we're going to say, can we hear back from him, or?
We can follow up with him if we don't hear back in
That'd be great.
a certain amount of time. Let's pin this for, if we don't have a response, we go May, June, then we go break. So I'll say if we don't hear back by August, we push back again, because I know they're about to go on we have May, June, they do budget stuff, XYZ. So sometimes they get really that's going to be an interesting challenge for them this year. So let's give it till August, but we will send it ASAP.
Okay.
I just know that once this year's budget is going to be very hectic for them. They're going to have a lot to talk about. All right. Do we have any commissioner reports? All commissioned reported out. Okay, thank you. All right. Our council liaison is now, we have two.
Oh, Commissioner Duterre has her hand up, Chair.
Commissioner Duterre and Commissioner Stinger, yes. Sorry.
To move quickly enough. I referenced this earlier in the meeting, but I wanted to report that that as part of one of the liaisons to the PAPD with Commissioner Savage, I had an introductory meeting just to get to know Assistant Police Chief Andrew Binder, and learned a lot about the PAPD, and starting to build a relationship and looking forward to working together with Commissioner Savage in this role that I've been assigned.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Stinger.
Thank you, Chair. So I attended the leadership training and it was very well done. There was one thing that I thought would be particularly relevant to us, and that was the question of how you record a vote, whether the names should be recorded or not. And they were saying yes, and I thought that we did not do that. And
we record by name, right, Minka?
We do. In the vote we record. What happens is if there's 4 people that say yes, we only record the nay. So is that what you're referring to, Vice Chair?
Yes, it is. And
yes, that's what we do. You will see that. You should have seen that in all that, but especially when it comes in the sense minutes, you will see it recorded in that way.
Yeah, she was saying that if it goes to council, they want to see the names and the arguments. And when it's
we are in dialogue with the clerk's office right now. That is one of the reasons for the delay in the current. As you know, we were doing verbatim minutes. We weren't. A service was doing that because that would be quite the chore for a 6-hour meeting. I don't think Mary would want to be employed anymore if that was her job. So we are in the process of doing sense minutes and having them reviewed by the clerk's office just this time to ensure that we have, not too much, but not, the right sense of, what needs to be in there. So we are following what they'd like us to do.
Thank you.
I just brought that up because there have been times in the past when we take a vote, unlike other commissions, that does not go anywhere. It's just a vote of our policy. And the legal office said that that was okay. If we wanted to have unity behind a vote going out, we could do that. If nobody else was voting on it. I also wanted to say that Patty and I met with the Palo Alto Art Commission as we were asked to do. And that was a very productive meeting. I heard today from the commissioner who wrote, you and Patty have got me thinking of a lot of ideas and questions. I am confident that we will figure out something that will be meaningful to most in our community. It won't be easy, but it'll be worth the effort. And for my particular project, I've talked about the art going into the project. There will be art coming out of the project too, thanks to this partnership.
Thank you. Let's see. Any other commissioner reports? I've been to several meetings this month with various community organizations, including the library, Stanford, the mayor. I'm pretty sure I'm missing something else, but we continue to just advocate and work for this commission on several different fronts. And I'm excited about where we're heading. Do we have anything from staff?
Commissioner Regier had an additional statement.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to say that I met with Project Safety Net, and they're talking about mental health and that issue. So I should have mentioned that about the mental health, but I've been working on that with their activities and also that was this week. And also, I don't know how to when someone contacts me and it's regarding more than one, like the Quakers, the Friends contacted me and wanted to be involved in the race congress. Do I just send it? So I just send it to you.
Yes,
and
send
then,
it to me or Valerie, and we'll get.
Yeah, so I did that. So I don't.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, the Friends are good. Those are good people. Good congregation. All right. Staff.
The only thing is I will be out of the office next week. So if you have something.
Are you going on vacation?
I am going on vacation.
Nobody call Minka. She's worked too hard. She's on vacation.
So,
Don't mess with me.
I ask that you, if there's something you need next week, my colleague Mary will be in the office. Well,
Okay.
will be in the office.
Wherever the computer
Whatever
plug says.
that is.
All right. Okay. We won't have approval because they're still trying to work through stuff. Tentative agenda for next regular meeting. Yes,
Oh.
Patty.
Oh, no, I was trying to turn it off. Sorry.
Okay. Tentative agenda. I was unable to get our 2 speakers around hate crimes, so I'm going to try again this month. So if I'm able to get our 2 community-based hate crime speakers. I have one lady, she's amazing, but she's super booked right now. So I'm gonna try to give it a longer runway than 2 weeks. So I'm gonna send her an email tonight, and hopefully we can get her for next month. Number 2, we wanted to continue the work of Commissioner Care and Deterioration on the homeless response. Number 3 is this will be the kickoff. We'll be deep in the kickoff of the race conversation, so we want to pull that on the calendar. And number 4, we want to at least get the initial reporting and direction on our health conversation. Are there any items we'd like to add to the agenda next time? All right.
Wait, I just have a question for Mika since she's going to go. How does Commissioner Trail and I, how do we find out how to be the lead, like part of the mission, the housing consortium? Are you the link, or how do we find, so we know when the meetings are going to be? Or
I can forward your information. I can check with Tim Wong, and he is the staff member, and I can get that back to you. I'll CC Mary on my email to Tim, and then Mary will get back to you.
Because that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. I think I was wrong tonight. I called it wrong. Whoever called before 9 o'clock was right. Everybody, yes, Mika. And you know what? I'm happy. Everybody's smiling at the end like they were in the beginning. We had a productive meeting. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to.
Sorry,
yes.
I'm sorry. I have one more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion about when we can meet? When is there any timeline at all about Zoom ending, or if we're going to do a hybrid, or?
I think Mary asked me, someone asked me that before the meeting. I have not heard anything. I know we're all saying, the governor says in June. I have not heard any direction from the city. I can't imagine that we will be meeting in person anytime before the fall.
So is there a way, because I know I mentioned it before about closed caption?
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Okay.
Yes.
Just so you know, Zoom sucks at closed caption.
Yeah, it's a third-party vendor that you have to work with.
Yeah, it sucks.
Right. Mary has been looking into that.
There is no good answer, actually. Sorry, I had to look it up something else, and it's not one of Zoom's strengths. All right, so I want to thank each of you for being part of tonight's meeting. Please have a great weekend, and we'll see you. What date, Mary? Minka? What's our next meeting?
It's actually the 8th, right, Mary? Yeah.
May 8th. I'll see you all on May 8th, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. All right, thank you, guys.
Okay.